Hillary Clinton said and did not say in her FBI interview during the investigation of her email scandal. It was an investigation that ended with a recommendation of no charges, only an admonition from the FBI director about extreme carelessness. Tonight, a look at how that conclusion was reached. Here is Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge.
The 11-page FBI summary of Hillary Clinton's July 2nd interview shows the former Secretary of State could not remember key details about her emails more than 24 times. Clinton told FBI agents she could not recall when she got a security clearance. Clinton could not recall any briefing or training on classified information. And Clinton could not recall specialized training for managing the U.S. government's most closely held secrets, known as special access programs. Critics aren't buying it.
It isn't plausible. Not someone with her background, experience, training. She's an attorney, 25 years in government, and suddenly she has selective amnesia. It's not plausible. It's not believable.
The same week Clinton became Secretary of State, she signed 2 non-disclosure agreements where she said she knew the rules and that violating these agreements could result in criminal charges.
If this information gets released, it allows our adversaries to start connecting the dots.
Clinton told the FBI that she could not recall the details surrounding the 2009 setup of the ClintonEmail.com domain. She told agents the personal email account was a matter of convenience. FBI agents do not appear to press Clinton on the issue, further reinforcing Republican criticism of the FBI director's investigation.
Remember, James Comey said she was not indicted because he didn't have sufficient evidence on the issue of intent. She said she did it for convenience, but I didn't see the follow-up questions in the interview I read.
Clinton was asked about this 2011 cable, first reported by Fox News, that advised against personal email use for State Department employees. She said she could not recall the specific cable. The heavily redacted FBI summary also shows Clinton was questioned about the 22 top-secret emails, too damaging to release for national security reasons, which include the drone campaign, as well as human spying for CIA programs.
Leaking information about programs, sources, and methods, especially the names of assets, gets people killed.
A separate document providing a case timeline shows 13 of Clinton's mobile devices are unaccounted for. Without a forensic examination, the FBI could not determine if any were hacked. This afternoon, the Clinton campaign released a statement that reads in part, while her use of a single email account was clearly a mistake and she has taken responsibility for it, these materials make clear why the Justice Department believed there was no basis to move forward with this case. And Trump also responded saying, I was absolutely shocked to see that her answers to the FBI stood in direct contradiction to what she told the American people. After reading these documents, I really don't understand how she was able to get away from prosecution. The Trump campaign also said the secret email server was essentially an end run around government transparency laws.
Clinton said way back when at that press conference at the United Nations that she had 2 mobile devices. We now know, as you just reported, that she had 13. What became of those 13 devices?
Well, one of the striking revelations in these documents is that at one point an aide to Bill Clinton physically took a hammer to smash Clinton's BlackBerries when she was done with them. And we don't know what happened to the 13, so there's no forensic review to determine one way or the other whether it was hacked. And the other revelation is that just 3 weeks after the New York Times first reported that there was this secret email setup, one of the IT management companies had an oh crap moment. This is like in the FBI documents, and they did this mass deletion. Yes, I am. They did a mass deletion of these records. And the other thing I would say is, unfortunately, the FBI agents in this particular case really appear to be acting like stenographers, not aggressive investigators.
Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, original Fox News reporting on the crisis in military aviation. We have alarming news about how many Navy jets can fly and how many cannot. Plus, we have new details about a story we broke, the dire condition of the Marine Corps Air Fleet. Pentagon producer Lucas Tomlinson has a Fox News exclusive.
36-year-old Marine Major Sterling Norton was killed when his F-18 crashed just 6 weeks ago. His was one of 3 F-18 fighter jets from the same squadron that have crashed since October, killing in all 2 Marine pilots. Sterling's commanding officer called him one of his best. Major Norton's mother told Fox News, quote, I want to wait for the investigation report. However, these jets are too old and should not be flown anymore. The head of Marine Corps Aviation seems to share her concern.
I worry about my young aviators that aren't getting the number of hours they need to, and so it's the mishap that looms in our bow that see coming just now. Will they have the experience to keep that bad thing from happening?
A Fox News investigation reveals that overall, the entire U.S. military saw a 48% increase in non-combat aviation crashes between 2014 and 2015 compared to 2 years prior. With 9 more crashes already this year, 4 were Navy jets. The admiral in charge of naval aviation denies there's a link between the crashes and the age and readiness of his branch's planes.
I wouldn't characterize it as a crisis. I get a question a lot, do you tie it to readiness or a lack of proficiency and currency? And in the review of those mishaps, I can't make that connection.
But according to the Navy's own data, only 21% of early model Navy F-18 Hornets can fly, and only 50% of its newer Super Hornets can, due to shortages in critical spare parts and maintenance. And congressional leaders are taking notice of the increase in crashes.
They're going up partly because they're not getting the training they should get. They're going up because maintenance is harder and harder to accomplish. They're going up because the airplanes are getting older and older.
Other branches are under the same pressure as the Navy. Only 2 of the Marines' 12 F-18 Hornet squadrons meet their flying hours.
I'll tell you that in order to get to 75% mission capable, I need about another 366 airplanes in the Marine Corps.
Right now, of the Marines' 273 F-18s, only 91 can fly. Hits to the military's readiness keep coming. Since 2009, the defense budget has been cut by more than $100 billion, while the high tempo of combat operations hasn't slowed.
When the president sends more people to Afghanistan, more people to Iraq, he doesn't ask for more money. The costs just come out of the training, the maintenance, and the readiness of our force. So the problem is getting worse.
The Pentagon disagrees. In a statement to Fox News, quote, "We have looked at our data and have not observed an overall trend in the increase of mishaps due to reduced training hours. Any increases we have observed are too small and over too short a duration to categorize." F-18s were designed for 6,000 flight hours, but they've now been extended to 8,000, awaiting the new Joint Strike Fighter. The head of Marine Corps Aviation tells Fox News he'd love to buy new jets faster if he could, but the money isn't there. Doug?
Our Pentagon producer, Lucas Tomlinson. Thank you, Lucas. Tropical storm Hermine is soaking much of the American Southeast tonight, raining on Labor Day weekend plans and turning the lights out for thousands of people. Tropical storm watches and warnings have been issued up and down the East Coast as far north as Connecticut. Hermine made landfall early this morning in Florida as a Category 1 hurricane. 1 person has been killed thus far. There have been major flooding and property damage as well. We have Fox team coverage tonight. Meteorologist Rick Reichmuth in the Fox Weather Center. He tells us where the storm is headed. Reporter Caroline Shively in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, where they are preparing for the worst. But we begin with correspondent Phil Keating tonight in St. Simons Island, Georgia, with a look at the damage already done. Good evening, Phil.
Good evening, Doug. This island sits about 200 miles from where Hurricane Hermine slammed into the Florida Panhandle. Still, residents here say the winds were, quote, insane throughout the day as Tropical Storm Hermine marched north through Georgia. Her ferocity felt here diminished dramatically. Now Hermine heads towards 23 million Americans this holiday weekend. Across the Florida Panhandle, evidence of Hurricane Hermine's impact litter towns like Cedar Key. Flooded streets, busted doors, and broken windows. One resident taunted the storm, spray painting this boarded up window. "Bring it on, Hermine." And she did.
Oh my God. I can't see.
80-mile-an-hour winds, heavy rains, and 5-foot storm surges along the Gulf Coast.
Well, we usually have sandbags up and everything to make sure we're prepared for it, but, I mean, it came through the walls. I mean, there's no way to prepare for that much storm surge coming in.
Many people wisely evacuated ahead of the storm. One who didn't, a homeless man in Leon County, Florida, died when a large tree crushed his tent. In Tallahassee, hundreds upon hundreds of downed trees blocked roads, broke through roofs, and toppled power lines.
This is what it is. You just listen and watch. If it gets bad, you leave. If you think you can ride it out, ride it out.
Florida Governor Rick Scott said 300,000 people lost power. Many won't have electricity returned for perhaps days.
We will spend the coming days assessing the damage and responding to the needs of our communities and Florida families. But the number one thing is to stay safe.
After downgrading to a tropical storm, Hermine still packs a punch. Rough surf and bands of wind and rain whipping the Georgia coastline on Hermine's march north through the deep south. For millions this holiday weekend, there is no fun in the sun.
About every 45 minutes, transformers were blowing until about 6, 4 in a row. That was it.
Just a lot of wind and 5 to 10 inches of rain, bringing life-threatening flash flooding and tornado possibilities up the East Coast. And tens of thousands of Georgians tonight are also still without electricity thanks to all of those transformers that blew up in Hermine's winds and rain. Doug?
Phil Keating in St. Simon's Island tonight. Thank you, Phil. North Carolina's barrier islands are now bracing for a heavy hit over the weekend. Reporter Caroline Shively is in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina. Good evening, Caroline.
Hi there, Doug, and we're already feeling the beginning of what Florida got last night and what Georgia and South Carolina have been feeling throughout the day. The rain's coming at us sideways, the winds are picking up, but the biggest change I've seen since this morning are those waves. Check out the whitecaps. The waves are getting bigger, meaner, and uglier by the hour. We're expecting a storm surge between 1 and 3 feet before this thing hits us sometime tomorrow morning. You add that with the rain totals, which have gone up over these last few hours. We're expecting 5 to 8 inches of rain. We could get up to 12 inches, and that's a problem. Think of the vulnerability of these islands here. It's this pencil-thin stretch of sand. We have the Atlantic at our back. We have the Sound at our front, a very low-lying area, which could be overwhelmed. The winds as well are what we are really worrying about. We could get between 45 mile per hour, 50 mile per hour winds with gusts of even higher than that. So plenty of folks out here taking pictures, walking around, enjoying the surf now, but things should get uglier overnight. Doug, back to you.
Caroline Shively on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Thank you. Well, let's find out what Hermine will be doing this weekend. Meteorologist Rick Reichmuth at the Fox Weather Center in New York. Good evening, Rick.
Hi, Doug. Yeah, Caroline is right. It is going to be much worse across the Outer Banks overnight tonight. Center of the storm right here across parts of South Carolina, where we've seen over 10 inches of rain. Some spots cause a lot of flooding, and tornado concerns will continue to be the case throughout the evening as the storm continues to rotate on shore. When that happens, that rotation from the storm causes additional rotation, and we start to see a little bit of tornado activity with the friction of the land. This will continue to pull off towards the northeast as it does. Heaviest of the rain is going to be across North Carolina throughout the overnight and into the start of the day tomorrow. Some spots there, likely 8 to 12 inches of rain, and that is going to be causing the continued threat for flash flooding. Where you see that red, we have flash flooding going on as we speak. All right, here's the track of the storm. By tomorrow afternoon, it is off the shore of the Outer Banks there. Then it settles in across parts of the Delmarva Peninsula, just to the eastern areas of New Jersey, and it settles in here for a while. Some indications we will likely see the strengthening back to hurricane strength winds right here off the shore of Jersey, likely not making a landfall, but bringing a lot of water in. Because of that, we have tropical storm warnings in effect all the way through the Jersey coastline, tropical storm watches for New York City, Long Island, coastal areas of Connecticut. We're going to see a lot of water being pulled in here. This is wave heights. Take a look at what happens here. This yellow here, Sunday evening, we're going to be watching waves potentially 25 to 30 feet high coming in across the Jersey shore there. Keep in mind, we had all the damage from Hurricane Sandy before, and people like to get out this weekend to enjoy the last weekend of summer, Doug. It is not going to happen. Potentially a lot of damage here, and a really serious situation going on for folks along areas of the Mid-Atlantic into the Northeast for this last summer holiday weekend.
All right, Rick, thank you very much. Keep us posted. We will be watching. A major slowdown last month in hiring is calling into question the Federal Reserve's plan to increase interest rates anytime soon. The U.S. economy added just 151,000 jobs last month, and that led to surprisingly positive numbers on Wall Street. The Dow gained 73, the S&P 500 was up 9, NASDAQ finished ahead 23. And for the week, the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ were all up about a half a percentage point. And we'll be talking to Trish Reagan a little bit later on about that. Samsung is recalling its new Galaxy Note 7 smartphone because some of its batteries have exploded or caught fire. The phones are being pulled from shelves in the U.S. and in 9 other countries just 2 weeks after the launch time. Samsung says there have been 35 instances of phones catching fire or exploding, but so far, no injuries. The company is not saying whether owners should stop using the phones. Coming up next, Donald Trump targets the minority vote. And now to America's election headquarters and Donald Trump shifting his emphasis from immigration to the economy and racial politics. Chief political correspondent Carl Cameron begins our coverage from New York tonight.
After receiving his second classified national security briefing at FBI headquarters in Manhattan, Donald Trump flew to Philadelphia for a roundtable discussion with African-American community, business, and religious leaders. The latest Fox poll shows Trump with 12% of support among black voters, but other polls have him in the single digits. He also met today with an African-American mother whose 20-year-old daughter was savagely murdered execution style in a Newark schoolyard by a gang of illegal immigrants.
We're the only hope. We're the only ones that know what's going on with illegal immigration. Hillary Clinton has no clue. Not at all. And doesn't care.
Trump's African-American outreach takes him to Detroit tomorrow, where he'll tape an interview with Bishop Wayne T. Jackson for the Impact Network, the nation's only African-American owned and operated Christian TV channel. Bishop Jackson submitted his questions to the campaign in advance, and Trump aides scripted the answers. Trump is also planning to address the congregation at Great Faith Ministries International Church live tomorrow, then visit inner-city neighborhoods with Dr. Ben Carson, who grew up in Detroit. After Trump's trip south of the border and his big immigration speech Wednesday, he told the Wall Street Journal that he toughened up his speech when Mexican President Peña Nieto tweeted that he told the Republicans' candidate that his country would not pay for Trump's promised border wall. Trump last night insisted he will get Mexico to pay for a border wall despite the Mexican president's adamant refusal.
He disagrees on who's going to pay for the wall, but that's a negotiation, and I will tell you that the United States will not be paying for the wall. Mexico will be paying for the wall. If I become president, now somebody else becomes president, probably, it will go right down the tubes like it always does with the politicians.
Trump's team this week warned him that his path to victory is shrinking and time's running out for him to get back on a winning track. And the Trump campaign recently complained to the Republican National Committee that it was not opening up enough campaign field offices in the key battleground states. Turns out, the party was waiting for the Trump campaign to sign the leases, and now they're scrambling to play catch up. Doug?
Carl Cameron outside Trump Towers in Manhattan tonight. Thank you, Carl. Americans' election headquarters in depth tonight. Donald Trump in Detroit. It is part of the Republican nominee's outreach to minorities in general and to African Americans in particular. Correspondent Peter Ducey is in Detroit tonight with what residents think about Trump's visit.
For decades, many Detroit residents have voted Democrat by default. But recently, this inner-city GOP office has been getting a lot of new visitors.
We've had people coming in looking for Donald Trump signs. We've had people who became, wanted to be volunteers strictly based off Donald Trump.
Michigan never got a visit from Mitt Romney after his 2012 convention, but Trump is about to make his third trip since becoming the nominee, this time to an inner-city Detroit church. And a script of suggested remarks obtained by the New York Times reveals Trump is being urged to say that, quote, coming into a community is meaningless unless we offer an alternative to the horrible progressive agenda that has perpetuated a permanent underclass in America.
Saying, hey, I may not be the person you thought would be best to represent you, but take a chance on me because what you keep voting for is not doing better for your communities.
But some say they're voting for the Democrat because that's just what they've always done.
I'm a fourth generation Democrat. I don't have anything to lose, but with him, I don't have a lot. I don't feel like I have a lot to gain. And, if it's a 50-50 borderline, I think I'm going to stick with my past history.
You don't think that there's any kind of an appetite to see what else somebody else might be able to do?
No, not right now.
We were raised like that, and our parents were Democrats, and it's just in our blood.
Still, Republicans sense an opportunity.
A lot of people, millennials in particular, don't have the same loyalty to the party as maybe their parents did.
And just because there's deep loyalty to the Democratic Party here doesn't mean there's deep loyalty to the Democratic nominee.
I'm not a Hillary fan or supporter at all, but at least I can say that she has given her supporters something of substance to support. Bernie all the way.
Donald Trump has compared inner-city neighborhoods to war zones, and tomorrow he's coming to one where most businesses are boarded up and many lots are overgrown with brush, with the promise that all this will get cleaned up if he gets elected president. Doug?
Peter Ducey in Detroit tonight. Thank you, Peter. We are pleased to tell you tonight that Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace will moderate the final presidential debate of the fall. The Commission on Presidential Debates announced its selections today. NBC's Lester Holt works the first debate, September 26th, from Hofstra University. Elaine Quijano of CBS handles the vice presidential session, October 4th, at Longwood University in Virginia. CNN's Anderson Cooper and Martha Raddatz of ABC will co-host the second presidential debate, a town hall from Washington University in St. Louis. And then Chris Wallace takes the final session, October 19th, from Las Vegas. Well, we told you moments ago about the August jobs numbers, 151,000 jobs created. Unemployment stays at 4.9%. Let's get more on the economy now from Fox Business Network's Trish Reagan. She joins us from New York tonight. Good evening, Trish.
Hi, Doug.
How would you characterize this new jobs report?
Well, on the surface, it looks good, right? When you're talking about 4.9% being the unemployment rate. However, when you peel back the layers here, it's not all that good. In fact, 151,000 jobs being created, while it's something, is not the number of jobs that we need to really start to grow this economy. Right now, we're stuck in that 1% growth range, not a whole lot. And 4.9%, while that seems like it's a low unemployment rate, Doug, you got to look at the labor participation rate. This is the number of people that are getting into the workforce. We saw that in the month of August, more than 576,000 people actually just gave up looking for work altogether, said it's not worth it. And so now the labor force participation rate, the number of people that are actually going to work every day or looking to go to work every day, it is at a level, Doug, that we haven't seen since the 70s, and we've been stuck there now for a while. So overall, look, it's not a good report. The economy is not in a good spot, and we need to start adding real jobs that are paying real wages if we're going to start growing things again.
If they're out there. Trish, this all raises the question, if the job market and the economic outlook are indeed so poor, why do investors keep bidding the market higher?
It's a good question. And I'll tell you, where can we put our money? How are we going to get some kind of return? I mean, you can't put it in